Hello everyone. Let me ask you something. Have you ever found yourself sitting across from the person you've loved for over a decade and suddenly realizing that the spark set your world on fire now feels like a quiet ember? Maybe you still share a home, a family, responsibilities, even laughter, but deep down, you sense something has shifted. The passion that once made you feel alive together has softened into routine. And you wonder, is this simply what love becomes after time? Or is it possible to bring back that electricity, that pulse of desire, even after years of being together? You see, marriages don't usually end because of the big betrayals we read about. More often, they fade because of silence, because of taking each other for granted, because the curiosity that once fueled the relationship has been replaced by predictability. But here's the truth. Passion is not something that just disappears. It's something that can be rebuilt, reimagined, reignited, if you're willing to approach it with honesty and courage. Today, we're going to talk about how to do exactly that, how to look at your marriage even after 10, 15, 20 years and discover ways to breathe fire into it again. Because love is not just about staying together, it's about staying alive together. Let me ask you something. Have you ever found yourself sitting across from the person you've loved for over a decade and suddenly realizing that the spark that once set your world on fire now feels like a quiet ember? Maybe you still share a home, a family, responsibilities, even laughter, but deep down, you sense something has shifted. The passion that once made you feel alive together has softened into routine. And you wonder, is this simply what love becomes after time? Or is it possible to bring back that electricity, that pulse of desire, even after years of being together? You see, marriages don't usually end because of the big betrayals we read about. More often, they fade because of silence, because of taking each other for granted, because the curiosity that once fueled the relationship has been replaced by predictability. But here's the truth. Passion is not something that just disappears. It's something that can be rebuilt, reimagined, reignited, if you're willing to approach it with honesty and courage. I want you to think back to the early days of your relationship. Remember how alert you were. Every word mattered. Every touch lingered. Every glance was charged with meaning. You didn't just see your partner, you studied them. You were curious about their mind, fascinated by the smallest detail. That is the essence of passion, curiosity, anticipation, the unknown. Over time, routine quietly pushes these elements aside. We fall into the comfort of knowing, and while safety is beautiful, it can also become the enemy of desire. So the first step in reigniting passion after 10 years of marriage is not to look at what is missing, but to look at what has been silenced. What parts of you did you once bring to this relationship that you no longer show? What parts of your partner have you stopped seeing because you've convinced yourself you already know everything about them? The truth is, no one is fully known. Even after decades, there are corners of your partner's inner world you haven't touched, and there are sides of you they haven't seen because you stopped showing them. Many couples come to me saying, "We want the spark back." And my response is, you don't just find the spark, you create the conditions where the spark can appear again. Passion lives in the space between people. It thrives when there is mystery, when there is playfulness, when there is a sense of discovery. If your entire relationship has become about managing schedules, paying bills, raising kids, solving problems, then passion doesn't have any room to breathe. The first invitation then is to reintroduce curiosity. Ask yourself, when was the last time you asked your partner a question that didn't have a practical purpose? Not, did you pick up the groceries? Or, what time are you getting home? But something that reopens the door to their inner life. Something like, what's a dream you still have that you've never told me? Or, what was a moment this week that made you feel proud of yourself? Questions like these reawaken intimacy because they tell your partner, I still want to know you. And here is the paradox. Passion needs closeness, but it also needs distance. In the early stages of love, we were attracted not only because we were close, but because there was still so much we didn't know. Long-term couples forget this. They assume desire fades because they are too familiar, when in truth, desire fades because they have stopped cultivating a little space, a little unpredictability, a little room to miss each other. So if you've been together for 10 years and you feel the spark has dimmed, I invite you to create distance, but the right kind of distance, not emotional withdrawal, not punishment, but the kind of distance that allows your partner to see you as separate, as mysterious, as someone who exists outside of their reach. When was the last time you pursued something purely for yourself, something that wasn't about your partner or your family? When was the last time your spouse saw you engaged, lit up, immersed in something that makes you feel alive? That aliveness is irresistible. Let me tell you a story. A woman once told me, when my husband is on stage performing music, I fall in love with him all over again. The way he closes his eyes, the way he loses himself, it makes me want him in a way that I forget in the daily grind of life. What she was describing is the erotic charge that comes when we see our partner in their element, in a space that is not ours to control. You don't have to be a musician for this to happen. It could be when your wife is laughing with her friends, when your husband is running on the soccer field, when your partner is giving a presentation at work. These are the moments you catch a glimpse of their independence, their vitality, and that glimpse can reignite something inside you. But here's the mistake many couples make. They think passion can only come from being together. They cling tighter, hoping to rekindle desire by adding more closeness, more routine date nights, more togetherness. While time together matters, it's not the whole answer. Sometimes you need time apart to remember that your partner is not just your spouse, they are also an individual, a mystery, someone you cannot fully own or know. Passion is born in that gap. So the second step is this: create moments where you are not fully available to your partner, not in a game-playing way, not to manipulate, but simply by investing in your own life. Read that book, join that class, take that trip with your friends. Not only will it enrich you, but it will give your partner the chance to see you with fresh eyes. And then when you come back together, let there be play. Playfulness is one of the most underrated secrets of long-term desire. Think about it. When was the last time you laughed together in bed? When was the last time you flirted, teased, or shared a moment of silliness? Many couples get so weighed down by the seriousness of life that their relationship becomes a project instead of a playground. But passion needs lightness, spontaneity, the kind of joy that comes not from solving problems, but from creating moments of delight. So here's a question to reflect on: when did your relationship stop being fun? And what small shift can you make to bring that back? Maybe it's dancing in the kitchen while you cook. Maybe it's sending a playful text in the middle of the day. Maybe it's stealing away for a kiss in a place that feels a little forbidden. These tiny acts are not frivolous. They are the fuel of desire. You see, passion after 10 years of marriage isn't about grand gestures. It's about reclaiming curiosity, cultivating a little distance, and reintroducing play. These are not strategies you apply once. They are practices you commit to, ways of being that can transform the ordinary into the extraordinary. Because in the end, passion is not about how long you've been together. It's about how alive you allow yourselves to be, both apart and together. Think about how many years you've spent building the structure of your marriage. The house, the family, the routines, the traditions. It's a beautiful structure, but sometimes inside that very structure, desire suffocates. Because desire needs air, it needs imagination, it needs a sense of freedom, even in commitment. And so the real question isn't, do you still love each other? Because most couples who've been together a decade still love each other. The question is, do you still feel alive in the presence of each other? To feel alive, you need to bring energy back into the relationship. And energy comes from movement. Not just physical movement, though that matters too, but movement of the mind, movement of the heart, movement of imagination. Many couples who've lost their spark have stopped moving toward each other in these ways. They've settled into a rhythm of coexistence. And coexistence is not the same as connection. So let's talk about one of the most important aspects of rekindling passion: communication that isn't purely functional. If you look at most long-term couples, their conversations slowly become transactional. Who's picking up the kids? Did you pay that bill? What's for dinner? We manage life together like co-CEOs of a household. But passion doesn't thrive in boardroom meetings. Passion thrives when we engage each other as lovers, as playmates, as confidants, not just as administrators. What if tonight, instead of scrolling side by side in silence, you asked your partner something unexpected? Maybe, what's a fantasy you've never shared with me? Or even something lighter. If we could wake up anywhere in the world tomorrow, where would you want it to be? These kinds of questions create openings. They reawaken the part of your brain that once saw your partner not as predictable but as surprising, and surprise is deeply erotic. Here's the truth: after 10 years, many couples think they know everything there is to know about their spouse. But that's an illusion, because people are not static. We are constantly changing. Your partner today is not the same person you married 10 years ago. They've had experiences you weren't part of, thoughts they didn't share, moments you didn't witness. To reignite passion, you must remain a student of your partner. Curiosity is the bridge between familiarity and desire. Now, let's talk about the role of touch. In long-term relationships, touch often becomes functional as well. A quick kiss goodbye, a pat on the back, the touch of routine. But touch is one of the most powerful languages of intimacy. When was the last time you touched your partner without an agenda? Not to initiate sex, not as part of a morning routine, just to hold, to linger, to explore. Long-term couples often forget the art of sensual touch, the kind of touch that says, I see you, I desire you, I want to feel you. One exercise I often recommend to couples is this: set aside 20 minutes with no distractions, no pressure, and simply touch each other. Explore the skin of the arm, the back of the neck, the places we ignore in the rush of life. Breathe together, slow down. Sometimes, reigniting passion isn't about adding something dramatic. It's about removing the pressure to perform and returning to presence. Passion doesn't live in rushing, it lives in lingering. And let's not forget the power of storytelling. Do you remember the early days of your love story? How you told it to friends, how you repeated it like a fairy tale? Over time, couples stop telling their story. They forget the magic of remembering together, but revisiting your shared history can reawaken the sense of destiny, of romance, of meaning. Sit down with your partner and say, "Tell me again what you thought the first time you saw me." Or, "What do you remember about the first time we kissed?" When you reawaken the narrative of your love, you remind yourselves that this isn't just a partnership, it's a story worth continuing. Now let's step into the space of intimacy that is often hardest to talk about: erotic life. After 10 years, many couples find themselves stuck in patterns of sexual routine, or sometimes in silence. Desire doesn't vanish, but it can become buried under layers of shame, fatigue, stress, or simply the monotony of repetition. But here's the secret: your erotic life is not something that is either alive or dead. It is something that can be nurtured. And nurturing it begins with conversation. When was the last time you spoke about your desires? Not about what's wrong, not about what's missing, but about what excites you, what intrigues you, what you crave. Too often, couples avoid these conversations because they're uncomfortable, but silence is far more dangerous than discomfort. Passion thrives when we dare to speak the unspeakable. And here's something many people don't realize: eroticism is not only about sex, it's about the erotic imagination, the ability to bring play, novelty, and creativity into your connection. Maybe it's trying something new together. Maybe it's role-playing, exploring fantasies, or even just changing the setting. But beyond technique, it's about daring to break out of routine and remind yourselves that intimacy is an adventure, not a duty. I often say that in long-term love, we must balance two needs: the need for security and the need for freedom. Security gives us stability, trust, comfort. Freedom gives us excitement, risk, novelty. Too much security without freedom and we feel bored. Too much freedom without security and we feel unsafe. The art of sustaining passion is learning how to hold both. So ask yourself, where in your marriage have you leaned too heavily into security? Where have you abandoned the playfulness, the risk, the novelty that once fueled your desire? Sometimes it's as simple as shifting the energy. Dress up for each other. Go somewhere new together. Leave the phones behind. Surprise your partner, not with something expensive, but with your imagination. Passion doesn't come from money. It comes from creativity. And let's not forget, passion requires vulnerability. Vulnerability not only in the sense of sharing your fears or your struggles, but also in daring to show your desires. Many people fear rejection if they reveal what they really want. But withholding yourself kills desire more surely than rejection ever could. To reignite passion, you must be willing to risk being fully seen. I know for some of you listening, this might sound daunting. Maybe you're thinking, but what if my partner doesn't respond? What if I open up and they don't meet me there? And yes, that's a real risk. But isn't the greater risk to live the rest of your marriage on autopilot, with passion only as a memory? Love is not meant to be safe at the cost of being alive. You see, after 10 years, passion doesn't fade because it's impossible. It fades because couples stop feeding it. But passion can be rekindled. It takes curiosity, playfulness, vulnerability, and imagination. It takes remembering that your partner is not just your spouse. They are your lover. And lovers are not managed. They are discovered again and again. When I sit with couples who have been together for many years, I often ask them, when was the last time you looked at your partner, not as the parent of your children, not as the manager of your household, but as a man or a woman you desire? Too often, the long journey of marriage reshapes how we see each other. We begin to identify more with our roles than with our essence. Husband, wife, father, mother, provider, caregiver. Beautiful roles, yes, but none of them carry the electricity of lover. Reigniting passion means reclaiming that lens. It means daring to see your partner again as someone who can make your heart race, not just someone who shares your responsibilities. And that begins with how you look at them. Desire lives in the eyes. The way you gaze at your partner tells them whether you see them as ordinary or extraordinary. When was the last time you let your eyes linger a little longer, not in judgment, not in fatigue, but in admiration? Sometimes, reigniting passion begins with something as simple as letting your partner know that they are still worthy of being desired. But here's another truth: passion thrives not only on admiration, but on play with the unknown. Think about it. Why were the early days so charged? Because you didn't know how the other would respond. Because there was anticipation. Because every word and touch carried uncertainty. That mystery doesn't vanish with time. It vanishes with assumptions. You assume you know everything they're going to say, everything they're going to do. But what if you chose to be surprised again? Imagine sitting across the dinner table and instead of zoning out or repeating the same safe conversations, you ask your partner something that disrupts the pattern. Maybe you say, "Tell me something about yourself I don't know." Or, "What is a dream you still hold for the future that has nothing to do with us?" You'd be amazed how these questions can change the atmosphere. Suddenly, You are reminded that the person you share a life with is also a mystery waiting to be uncovered. Another important piece of this puzzle is ritual, not just routine. The difference is subtle but powerful. Routine is brushing your teeth every night. Ritual is lighting a candle together, sharing a moment of gratitude, creating a pause in the ordinary that feels sacred. In marriage, rituals create meaning. And when rituals are infused with intention, they can also create desire. Imagine creating a weekly ritual of undistracted time together, not to solve problems, not to make plans, but simply to connect. Maybe it's a glass of wine together after the kids are asleep. Maybe it's a morning walk holding hands. These rituals may seem small, but they are the anchors that remind you this relationship is not only about survival, it's about connection. And let us talk about the body. After 10 years, many people feel disconnected from their own sensuality, not just from their partner. Stress, work, fatigue, parenting, these things can make us forget that we are erotic beings. But passion cannot return to the couple if it has died in the individual. So the question becomes, how connected are you to your own body? Do you move, stretch, dance, breathe in ways that make you feel alive? Because when you feel at home in your own body, you become more open to passion with another. I want you to think about the times you felt most desired in your life. What were you doing? Who were you being? Often it wasn't about your appearance or your performance. It was about your energy. Passion is contagious. If you show up with aliveness, curiosity, and playfulness, your partner feels it too. You cannot demand passion from your partner if you are not cultivating it within yourself. This brings me to something we often overlook. The erotic is not about perfection, it's about presence. Many couples get stuck because they think desire should be effortless. And when it isn't, they assume it's gone forever. But the truth is, passion in long-term love requires effort, not heavy, exhausting effort, but intentionality. It's the willingness to keep showing up, to keep playing, to keep experimenting, even when life gets busy. So let me ask you, when was the last time you planned something for your partner? Not because it was their birthday or an anniversary, but simply to delight them. Surprise is one of the greatest gifts to desire. It says, I see you, I think about you, I still want to create joy with you. It could be as simple as cooking their favorite meal, leaving a note in their bag, or planning a spontaneous evening. What matters is not the size of the gesture, but the intention behind it. And let's be honest, after a decade, many couples stop flirting. They stop teasing. They stop making each other blush. But flirting is not reserved for the young or the new. Flirting is the art of keeping desire alive through play, through suggestion, through the unspoken. Even a glance, a whisper, a touch under the table can carry more erotic charge than the most elaborate plan. Do not underestimate the power of flirting with the person you already love. For some couples, this journey of reigniting passion also means healing old wounds, because desire does not thrive in resentment. If your marriage carries unresolved anger, unspoken disappointments, betrayals never addressed, passion will struggle to find its place. So part of this process may require difficult conversations, apologies, forgiveness. It may mean letting go of the version of the past that weighs you down so you can create space for something new. Passion is not only about adding, it is also about releasing. And remember, passion is not a permanent state. It ebbs and flows. There will be seasons of intensity and seasons of quiet. What matters is not to panic when the fire dims, but to know how to tend to it. Like a fire, passion needs attention, fuel, oxygen. If you stop tending to it, it will fade. If you nurture it with presence, curiosity, and play, it can burn for decades. So, if you've been together 10 years or more, and you find yourself longing for that spark, know this: it is possible. But it doesn't come from waiting. It comes from creating, from daring to look at your partner with fresh eyes, to ask new questions, to bring new energy, to play, to surprise, to forgive, to touch with intention. Passion is not found, it is cultivated. And the most beautiful part is this: when you reignite passion in your marriage, you are not just reviving desire, you are reviving a part of yourself. You are saying yes to aliveness, yes to intimacy, yes to love as a living, breathing force. Not a memory of what once was, but a creation of what still can be. When people come to me after 10, 15, even 20 years of marriage and say, we don't feel that passion anymore, I often ask them, do you still allow yourselves to be playful? Do you still allow yourselves to be curious? Do you still allow yourselves to be surprised by one another? Most of the time, the answer is no, because somewhere along the way, responsibility replaced spontaneity. And yet, it is exactly in the return to playfulness, curiosity, and surprise that passion is reborn. Let's talk about play first. Play is not trivial. Play is the opposite of survival mode. Play says, for this moment, we are free, and freedom is erotic. In the early days, you played without even realizing it. The teasing, the flirting, the inside jokes, the adventures. You created moments of lightness that allowed desire to flourish. But as the years went on, you probably started to feel that play was a luxury you couldn't afford. Bills, work, kids, aging parents, life became serious. But here's the paradox: the more serious life becomes, the more essential play becomes. Think about this. When was the last time you laughed so hard with your partner that your stomach hurt? When was the last time you had a secret only the two of you knew? A look across the table that no one else understood? When was the last time you broke your own routine just to create a memory together? Passion needs those moments. They may not seem productive, but they are profoundly sustaining. Now, curiosity. Curiosity is the antidote to boredom. Curiosity says, even after 10 years, there is more to discover. If you think you already know your partner completely, you are wrong, because people are never finished. They are constantly evolving. The tragedy is not that we change, it is that we stop noticing. Your partner has new dreams, new fears, new ideas, even if they haven't shared them. Ask. Listen. Be willing to be surprised. When you remain curious, you keep your partner alive in your imagination, and that imagination is the birthplace of desire. And then surprise. Surprise is the oxygen of passion. The unexpected glance, the unplanned touch, the gift not tied to an occasion. Think of the early days of your relationship, how often you surprised each other without even thinking about it. Maybe you wrote notes. Maybe you planned little outings. Maybe you said things that made each other blush. Over time, many couples stop doing these things, not because they don't care, but because they assume it's no longer necessary. But passion thrives on the unexpected. Surprise tells your partner, I still think of you, I still want to delight you, I still want to be a source of joy in your life. Let me share a story. A couple I once worked with had been married for 13 years. They came to me saying their sex life was non-existent. Their conversations revolved around logistics, and they felt like roommates. One day, the husband decided to do something small but powerful. He left a handwritten note in his wife's bag that simply said, "You're still the most beautiful part of my day." She found it at work, and it moved her to tears, not because of the words themselves, but because of the gesture. It was unexpected. It was a reminder that she was still seen. From that moment, a new door opened. They began surprising each other in small ways, and slowly, the intimacy they thought was lost began to return. This is what I want you to understand. Reigniting passion is not about grand gestures. It is not about expensive trips or elaborate plans. It is about daily acts of presence, curiosity, play, and surprise. The things that once came naturally in the beginning are the very things you must now intentionally cultivate. But there is another piece we must address: selfhood. You see, passion is not just about what happens between two people. It's also about what happens within each individual. If you've lost touch with yourself, if you've stopped nurturing your own growth, if you've let fatigue and routine strip you of vitality, it will be difficult to bring passion into the relationship, because desire requires energy, and energy comes from within. So I ask you, what have you stopped doing that once made you feel alive? Maybe it was painting, maybe it was running, maybe it was traveling, maybe it was simply taking care of your body. These are not luxuries. They are essential to keeping your erotic self alive. When you reconnect with your own aliveness, you bring that spark back into your relationship. Your partner sees you differently when you are lit up by your own passions, and suddenly they are reminded of why they desired you in the first place. There's something very powerful about being able to look at your partner and say, I am not finished. I am still becoming, because it invites them to do the same. And when two people continue to grow, individually and together, they create a dynamic that never goes stale. But let's also be honest, sometimes the reason passion fades is because of unspoken resentment. Resentment is like a silent poison in relationships. It builds up from disappointments, from unmet expectations, from moments when you didn't feel heard or valued. If you want to reignite passion, you must clear the air. That means being brave enough to say, I've been holding on to this, and it's been getting in the way of us. It means listening, not to defend yourself, but to understand. It means being willing to forgive, not because the past didn't matter, but because the future does. Passion cannot thrive in an atmosphere heavy with resentment. But once the air is cleared, once there is honesty and healing, the space for desire opens again. Because passion is not only about physical intimacy, it is also about emotional freedom. And emotional freedom comes from truth-telling. So here is where we are now to reignite passion after 10 years. You must reintroduce play, curiosity, and surprise. You must nurture your own aliveness, and you must be willing to confront and release resentment. Do this, and you will begin to notice something remarkable. The very same partner you thought you knew inside and out begins to feel new again. And isn't that what passion really is? The feeling of discovering, even after years, that the person you love still has the power to surprise you. There's something deeply moving about the fact that two people can share a life for 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, and still look at each other and wonder, can we keep the fire alive? Can we still feel that spark? And my answer is always yes. Not because passion is simple, not because it doesn't take work, but because passion is less about luck and more about intention. You see, in the beginning, passion is effortless. It's fueled by novelty, by mystery, by the thrill of the unknown. But in long-term love, passion is a choice. It is the choice to keep seeing your partner with fresh eyes, the choice to stay curious, the choice to create moments of play and surprise, the choice to speak desires rather than silence them, the choice to heal resentments rather than bury them. Passion is not a gift of time. It is the art of refusing to let time turn love into habit. And here's what I want you to hear most clearly. It is never too late. Maybe you're listening right now and thinking, but we've grown so distant. We barely talk about anything beyond logistics. Our intimacy is gone. Our laughter is gone. We've become roommates. Even then, yes, even then, it is possible because passion doesn't require perfection. It requires willingness. It requires two people deciding, we are not finished yet. Think about it. 10 years together means you already have the foundation of love, of trust, of shared history. That foundation is not a burden. It's a gift. It means you have something worth reigniting. And reigniting doesn't mean going back to the past. You cannot recreate who you were at 25, but you can create something new that is just as powerful, perhaps even more, because now you have wisdom, depth, layers of intimacy that only time can give. Passion at 50 is not the same as passion at 20, and that's the beauty of it. So how do you begin? You begin by daring to shift your lens. Stop looking at your partner only as a co-parent, a financial partner, a roommate, and choose to look at them as a lover. See them not through the eyes of routine, but through the eyes of possibility. Let yourself notice their body, their voice, their energy. Let yourself admire desire linger. Passion begins in the gaze. You also begin by taking responsibility for your own aliveness. Passion cannot come from your partner alone. It must also come from you. If you want to feel more alive in your marriage, then you must feel more alive in yourself. That means reconnecting with your body, your creativity, your curiosity. It means nurturing your own growth so that when you come back to your partner, you bring energy rather than depletion. And then you begin with small acts, a touch that lingers a moment longer than usual, a compliment that is unexpected, a question that goes beyond the surface, a playful text in the middle of the day. These may sound simple, but do not underestimate their power. Passion is rarely lost in grand betrayals. It is lost in the slow erosion of small moments, and it is restored in the same way by small acts of presence again and again. But let me also remind you, passion is not constant. It ebbs and flows. There will be days when you feel deeply connected and days when you don't. That does not mean something is broken. That does not mean you are failing. It means you are human. What matters is not whether passion is always burning, but whether you know how to rekindle it when it dims. And maybe the most important thing I can tell you is this: passion is not only about sex. Passion is about energy, vitality, aliveness. It is about the way you bring yourself to the relationship. Sex is one expression of passion, yes, but so is laughter, so is curiosity, so is surprise, so is admiration. When you broaden your definition of passion, you see that it can be woven into every corner of your relationship. I want you to imagine this 10 years from now, 20 years from now, looking back on your marriage and saying, we didn't let it fade. We kept showing up. We kept choosing each other. We kept finding ways to make it alive. That is the legacy of passion. It's not the absence of struggle. It's the refusal to give up on desire. And here's the paradox. When you reignite passion in your marriage, you don't just transform the relationship. You transform yourself. Because passion makes you feel more alive, more awake, more connected to life itself. When you rediscover desire, you rediscover vitality. You walk differently, you speak differently, you breathe differently. Passion in love is also passion in living. So I want to leave you with this. Love is not just about staying. Anyone can stay. Love is about staying alive together, about refusing to reduce your relationship to survival, about daring again and again to look at the person beside you and say, I still choose you, I still desire you, and I am willing to keep creating with you. If you are listening to this right now, I want you to know you are not too late. You are not too far gone. You are exactly where you need to be to begin again. All it takes is one step, one look, one question, one touch, one moment of play. And from that small spark, a fire can grow. So tonight, I invite you to do just one thing. Look at your partner not as the familiar, but as the mysterious. Let yourself remember why you chose them, and let yourself imagine what still lies undiscovered. Speak one word of admiration. Offer one touch of desire. Create one moment of play, because passion does not return in one sweeping gesture. It returns in small, consistent acts of love and aliveness. And when you do this, when you dare to reignite passion after 10 years, you give yourself and your partner the greatest gift of all, a love that is not just remembered, but lived, a love that is not just safe but alive, a love that does not settle for habit but chooses passion again and again. So here's to you, to your courage, to your curiosity, to your willingness to keep love alive. May your marriage not only endure but burn with the fire of desire, the warmth of intimacy, and the joy of discovery. Because love is not meant to fade into silence. It is meant to keep singing even after the years have passed.